Hi, this is Tom, and welcome back to Life 4.0 and our sixth video in our series on installing solar. We are getting very close. The structure is mounted in place and is solid. It is now time to mount the rails, the solar panels, and finish the electrical wiring. As always, I will walk you through step by step along the way. So, let's dive in. All right, big day today. First off, we got sunshine, which is a good thing. It's a little chilly at 17 degrees, so that's not helpful, but it should be warming up to about 40 today. So today's project, I've got our friend Don coming over to help me. We're going to start to put the rails in and secure those, and then if there's time, this afternoon might start to put a panel or two on. I'm going to have 2 rails for each column. I'm going to have 7 columns and 4 panels going up each column. The length of the panel is about 80 inches, so I'm putting the column on 20 inches in from each side, so it's about a quarter of the width inside. And then I'll allow the rails to have about an equal spacing all the way across. So I'm going to mark the positions along the lower beam here where I'm going to put each rail, and then we'll start to mount the brackets and then the actual rail itself. These are the L brackets that I bought that go with the Iron Ridge rails. At least there's an option for these to go with the Iron Ridge rails. These are really meant for use with 3-inch galvanized rigid pipe for the beams and for the columns. And the way these were designed is there's a big U-bolt that goes around the pipe and then comes up through those 2 holes there. So I'm going to ditch the U-bolt, but this bracket seemed to be really good for what I needed. There's these 2 holes here, which were meant for the U-bolt. And you can see that they don't quite span the gap of the 2 beams very well. So I tried this other hole here, and I'm going to put a lag bolt through there and a lag bolt through this additional hole. And that'll get the lag bolts through the span of these 2 beams. And then, so that's the bottom part, and then these nuts hold the actual rail. So there's a little square thing there that slides through a groove on the rail. And you're probably wondering, well, how am I going to do that, because this is level and the rail is going to go up at a 40-degree angle. So I debated about different designs on this. I thought about, this is the way it's supposed to be mounted, with the 3-inch rigid pipe right in line with the rail, and these both go through the groove of the rail. And I thought about that and how I could span this gap in the back. And then the issue is it's on the edge of the beam, not flush. So I was trying to think, well, I could have notched this out, and then that kind of weakens the beam and all that kind of stuff. So I debated this quite a bit, and I decided to go with the flat arrangement, attaching this directly to the rail, and then I bought some 1/4-inch aluminum rod that I'm going to fabricate a piece about 5 to 6 inches tall that's going to go from here up to the rail and hold that so that it's transforming the load down to both sides of the bracket. So that's the plan. We'll see how it comes together. It may take some tweaking on that rod to really make it work right. So to start off with, I've got to mark the positions of each one of the rails, and obviously your math is going to be different based on the size of your panels, and you want to plan about a 1/4-inch gap between each panel. I'm going to find the very center, which is probably going to be right in the middle of this post, and then I've got measurements working out both directions on where each one of the rails will be. So I'm going to mark those with a pencil, and then we'll be ready to have those. So all the rails are in place. It went pretty well. Definitely helped to have 2 people working. We had 2 drills, and 2 sets of socket wrenches. My friend Don was working down below while I was working up above, and that helped things move along pretty well. The only part I have left on the railing then is this extension piece that's going to go from where this bolt is straight up to here. So I'm going to make a piece probably 5.5, 6 inches long, 1/4 inch aluminum, and put that in there and drill the holes. Okay, so I've made this little extension rod. It's going to go up here, and then I'm going to use this sliding bolt for the top part. It's about 6.5 inches tall. It's 1/4 inch aluminum that I got at a Lowe's or Home Depot kind of place. So that's all in place now. Very solid there, so I'm happy about that. Now all I need to do is make 27 more of those, and we'll be all set. Okay, all done with adding those rods onto the brackets. They're all together there, pretty much vertical, and I think they're going to work out quite well. Same thing up on the upper beam. You can see all of the rods there. It gives a little bit more rigidity too to the rail. I can feel it being a little bit firmer there. So good shape there. We are ready to start putting panels on, so I'll start that tomorrow, and that should hopefully go pretty quick. Last little sort of icing on the cake, believe it or not, even though that's where all the energy is produced. It feels like mounting the panels and cranking down on the little fasteners should be pretty straightforward. The only thing is that they're a little heavy. They're about 50 pounds each, but other than that, it should be a lot of fun to put them up. Looking forward to that. Okay, on second thought, I'm going to put one panel up. I can't stand it, it's too exciting. I'm going to put one up just to sort of see how it goes, and then we'll do the rest tomorrow. So this is the optimizer. I've got one optimizer for each panel because I anticipate there's a fair amount of shading throughout the day, and this handles that quite well. And it comes with these little bolts, similar kind of thing where this goes inside the groove, and then it's got a nut on top. And also on the back of the optimizer is a little sticker that's removable, a little number barcode, and you want to keep track of those because you're going to pair all these with the, in my case, a solar edge inverter. So one of the stickers is permanent, the other one is removable. You want to take those off and put it on a little grid of a piece of paper so you know which panel is associated with which optimizer. Okay, so on the bottom of the rail goes one of these UFOs, Universal Fastening Object, and also this sort of half-shaped little end cap thing, and that holds it at the bottom. Alright, today's a big day. We're going to be putting all the solar panels on the racking system. Plan is to put the first row, bottom row, all in to make sure that all fits fine, the spacing's okay, and nothing's askew. And then it's a matter of stacking the rest up, which should be a lot easier. The next step here is to do the wiring behind the solar panels. So wiring the panels to the optimizers and then connecting the optimizers together in series into a string. I'm going to do 2 strings. The 2 lower rows and the 2 upper rows will be 2 separate strings, and I can go up to 6,000 watts, which is pretty close to what that would be, 14 panels, and that's the spec on the inverter. So that'll be the process. And now it's just a matter of kind of figuring out how to clean up the wiring and run the wiring to each panel and down to the middle. So I'm going to go down to the middle, and that's where we have conduit coming up and where the electrical is going to run from the house. So for each one of the panels, I've got the optimizer mounted underneath it, and I put it on the sort of upper corner of the panel, and that's so that I'm close to this edge of the panel so that I can route wiring along there. And so the optimizer is the recipient of the power from the panel itself. So I've got a positive and negative wiring here, and these are just the standard MC4 connectors, waterproof connectors. And so I connect those into the optimizer. Thankfully they can only go one way. This is the female connector, it's got to go in the male one on the optimizer, and vice versa for the other. So those two connect into the optimizer in each panel, and then coming out of the optimizer is this long tail of a line that then you connect in series to the next one up. So for instance, if I was going to go up to this panel up above and do it in series, I would just need to connect these two here and snap those together, and then continuing on with the next panel. So that's the sort of approach, and then I'm going to do a bunch of zip tying and using those clips to kind of organize and clean up the wiring. These are the two MC4 connectors. Got a female one and a male one, and they've got a little barbed edge there. Push them together and you hear a little click, and you know it's all set right there. And it does say do not disconnect under load. So if you have to disconnect this for any reason while the sun's out, you want to put a blanket or a towel or something over the panel so it stops producing watts, so there's no sudden surge when you disconnect this. So that's how the MC4 connectors go together. Okay, I've got a kind of a system going here now that I'm just going to kind of repeat going down the rest of the panels. And it's as I mentioned, a combination of using zip ties. So I've got black zip ties in these holes, and I've used a couple of these metal panel clips in spots where there wasn't really a hole available and I wanted to organize the wiring together. But I bought a whole bunch. I bought like a 800 count bag of black exterior zip ties. And you don't want to compromise on zip ties because they can wear after UV exposure and just exposure to temperature variations. So black zip ties, and then I've also used those plastic rail clips here to organize the wires that are going along the rails. And there's another one down there. So obviously your arrangement's going to vary based on your size of your panels and the location of your rails. But I just would say think about where you locate your optimizer, because you have a lot of wiring that kind of comes in and goes out of where the optimizer is. So if you can get it close to the edge of the panel, you can route the wiring a little cleaner. So now it's just a matter of repeating that. Okay, so to finish up the wiring, I'm going to be running some additional PV wire from the end of the string to the what's going to be the pass-through box. So that's this piece here. It comes with a male and a female end to it, and the plan here is to attach to the end of the string that I made and run this wire up and over and down to this post where I'm going to put the pass-through box. And then from this post will be the wiring that goes down through the conduit and into the house. I'm going to have gobs of this PV wire left over. I got way too much of it. I probably only need maybe 15 feet times 4 lengths, 2 positives and 2 negatives, but that's the way it is. So what I've got here completed from last night is on the 2 lower rows is 1 string, and then on the upper two is the 2nd string. And so I've got for each panel, the output of the positive of the panel goes to the negative
of the other panel, the next one, and keeps going that way, all chained together in series. And then I had the string end here because this is where the conduit is. So I've got one end ending here and the other of the string ending here. So I'm going to attach this additional cabling to run those up and over into the pass-through box here. And similarly on the upper two levels, so I've got this one ending and this one ending here. So from here it goes all the way, connecting each optimizer to the adjacent one around the top and all the way down the other end and back over and coming back to here. And just so you're wondering, this is not live. I've actually disconnected one of the connections at the end on each string so that I know there's no chance that I'll get live current come through here. So I've broken the string purposely so that I can do wiring here without worrying about it having actual voltage on those cables. So that's the plan. Okay, we're all set there. I've got both pairs of strings coming here and just looped here temporarily so the electrician can come and run the wiring out through the conduit. So that was a pretty straightforward thing, and it's good because it's pretty cold out, my hands are getting cold. So that pretty much wraps up that. All the wiring is done that I can do, and I'm turning it over to the electrician in about a week. Okay, today's job is kind of finishing up some little odds and ends from the build out, and I'm going to be cutting the ends of these rails off. They're about 5-6 inches too long. So I borrowed a friend's Sawzall, and we're going to give this a whirl, see how it goes. You have to leave at least an inch on the end for the stopper sleeve and the UFO fitting on there to have something to attach to in the rail. So I'll cut up to pretty close to that and then put the little plastic iron ridge end caps on. So that's that. All trimmed off, and I think it looks pretty good. So we're pretty close to December 12th, so almost the shortest day of the year, and want to show you a little bit about why it's important to have optimizers on if you have any potential shading. As you can see in the panels here, we had a light snow overnight yesterday, and this has not melted off yet because it gets shade from the peak of our roof up there. I really didn't have an option. I couldn't push the array further back. We have a 25-foot setback with our in our town, and this is considered a normal structure, not like a fence or whatever. So I had to make a compromise there, knowing that in this time of the year, this area is not going to get a lot of sun, so you can see the reality of that with the fact that the snow has not melted off completely. And you can also see some shading right here in the middle. So really important in this kind of scenario to have optimizers so that as these panels stop producing because of the shade, it's not affecting the other panels, definitely not the other panels on the string. And if you look up here, so it's 10 o'clock in the morning, the sun rises kind of through that break in the trees there, and it's so low in the sky it's barely making it above those tree lines, and then it's going to set back over there. So not a huge amount of sun this time of year, some, and it's going to move across the array and produce something, but you know, just one of the realities. I chose probably a few additional panels than were really needed, would normally be needed in the scenario for solar because of this reason, because I knew I was going to get shade different times of the day, and definitely additional shading in the winter time and short days like it is now in December. So a little bit of advice there for you to definitely go with optimizers if you have any shading. So once again it's snowing when work is needed to be done on the solar, but I've got my electrician and his apprentice here, and they are wiring the two strings into a combiner box and then getting ready to run the wiring through the conduit to the house. So I'll show you what that looks like. So they've installed this grounding wire here with a grounding lug right there. And these are grounded every pair of rails because they're individually one metal structure, so they've got 7 different grounding points in the grounding wire altogether. And then the grounding wire goes down to this rod right there, and you can see the combiner or pass-through box there. This is a look at the pass-through box. So in from this side are the 4 conductors, 2 for the upper string and 2 for the lower string, and then the grounding wire that goes all the way down one end and down the other, and then connects over to this grounding stake there. And so on the other side of the pass-through box is the wiring that's going into the house. So there's 5 conductors there, ground and 2 positive and 2 negative. And then that goes into the inverter. Okay, and so the conduit's already in the ground over here, and it's running underneath and over to the house. And I put this board up for them to mount the disconnect, the DC disconnect required before it goes into the house. So they'll pull wiring up through here, mount the disconnect, and then continue the wiring inside the house. And then once they're done running the wire through the conduit, they're going to come over here to mount the inverter and disconnect and the rec meter on this board here. And they're going to mount everything here and then run the wiring into the service panel there. So that's how it's going to go, and we're getting very close to being done, so it's exciting.
We'll put a mini clip right here when we know right where it is.
Okay, we got everything ready for the electrical inspection from the town. All the equipment is mounted here. It's just not the final part of connecting into the panel has not been done until we get the all clear from the inspection. But this is the inverter, the Solar Edge inverter with obviously the cover off so the inspector can see that. This is going to be the rec meter, and then this is the AC disconnect before it runs into our electrical panel up there. So we've gone through and put a bunch of these safety stickers on that are required. I got a whole packet of them from the distributor, and it was a little bit of a trick to try to figure out where the stickers go and all that. You can see you're supposed to put stickers up on the conduit. So we've got this rigid conduit the electrician put in. It goes all the way down other end of our basement and then out the end of the house there where the DC disconnect is, and then there's conduit under the ground that goes to the solar array. So that conduit all needs to be labeled with these stickers that say warning photovoltaic power source. I've also brought in some Ethernet here because I've got Ethernet that's coming in through here and going into the inverter so that it can send data out to the Solar Edge monitoring platform. We're just waiting for the inspection. Once the inspection comes through, then I'll be able to submit the final paperwork to Eversource to put in both the net meter outside instead of our regular utility meter, and then they will also install the rec meter here so that I can get those renewable energy credits or certificates to sell in the marketplace.
So we got the DC disconnect on the outside of the house all done. I just have to put the safety labels on. It was a little too cold this morning for them to stick, but there's a couple labels that go on the conduit coming up, and then a couple labels on the panel itself. During the electrical inspection this morning, everything pretty much worked out electrically. There was one small wiring thing they wanted us to change, and but the other thing is that the inspector wanted me to put something on the back of the solar panels to protect people from like grabbing the wires or coming in contact with the wiring. So he was asking for some kind of cover on the back side of the panel or to enclose the whole area in the framing. So bit of a surprise to me. I've never seen that done never seen it really look like it was done for a safety inspection purposes. Definitely not the back side of the panels. So this way, I guess, inspections go town to town. They have different interpretations of what the electrical code really is. He was saying that it had to be up to 8 feet high, so somebody can't reach up within 8 feet and touch the wiring. So to deal with that, I bought these 4x8 sheets of pressure-treated lattice, and I got 12 of them. I'm going to put 2 rows up on the back side of the panels, starting down here on the low part, and then 2 rows of them, and then 6 pieces long going all the way down the other side. Okay, we're all done putting the lattice up. I think it came out pretty well. It's on there pretty hard, pretty stable. I think it'll satisfy the inspector and also might be aesthetically a little bit more pleasing than staring at wiring in the back of a solar panel if you're one of our neighbors. So we're all done there. Okay, so we thought we had all the electrical work done, and ended up we needed to make one modification. We had mounted here the rec meter, and after some discussion with the utility company, they originally told us it was okay to have it down here in the basement, but then they said later that it has to be outside. So I had to have the electrician come back and put in this flexible conduit and run up and out through the sill plate there and outside, and have a meter socket installed there. So that was a little bit of a twist, and we got pictures and emails and phone calls with the utility company that eventually came back and installed the rec meter for us. So that's all set there.
That's a wrap on this edition of our series on installing solar. Join us next time for the final episode in this series, where we commission the inverter, set up the monitoring website, and turn the array on for the first time. If you enjoyed watching this video, please consider giving us a like, as it really helps others find this kind of content. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell to be notified of our upcoming releases.